Welcome to the Wedding Obsessed podcast designed to help you plan your dream day. I'm your host, Adriana, and each week I'm joined by the wedding industry's top professionals, celebs, influencers, and friends who share tips, trends, advice, and mistakes they've made so you don't have to. This is the Prenup Podcast.
If you've started planning your wedding but you haven't thought about your stationery, you need to start now. Today's guest, Michaelene of Queen Bee Design Studios, is explaining why it's so important to start early to create a cohesive theme around your entire wedding. She's also answering all of your questions about save the dates, wedding invitations, signage, all of your stationery, from how to word your invitations to the best ways to send them and beyond. In addition to being an amazing wedding stationery designer, Michaelene is also a wedding coordinator. So she has tons of fun, hot takes and advice about wedding planning. If you want to connect with Michaelene, I have everywhere you can find her in the show notes. With that, please welcome the fabulous Michaelene of Queen Bee Design Studios to the Prenup Podcast. So if you listen to the end of each episode, you know we do a monthly giveaway of our Prenup Bridal Prep Planner. But in addition to that, we're doing another giveaway that you guys are going to love. You heard me talking about smart labels on last week's episode. It's such a great product and it's so versatile, whether you're planning your wedding or you're moving or you just have a lot of things in storage. So the way it works is you download the Smart Labels app, and that's available on iOS and Android. Then you label your boxes. Each label has a unique identifier and color to help you organize your boxes. Then you're going to scan the label. In the app, you can give each box a name, location, description, pictures, as well as descriptions of each item inside. And that's going to help you easily find any item that you're searching for, whether that's your DIY centerpieces or your bridesmaids gifts for the morning of your wedding. You can search for it in the app and it'll tell you the exact location of the box, as well as the label color, identifier, and any uploaded pictures. So you're not going to have to unstack a million boxes, rummage through everything to try to find that one thing that you're looking for, only to find out that it was actually in your mom's garage and not in your attic. You can find out what's in the box without ever actually having to open it. So the winners will not only get this 48 pack of Smart Label stickers, but they will also get 1 year free of the Smart Label app. I just got mine in and I'm so excited because within the next couple weeks, I'm going to be putting away all of my Christmas decor, and it was very difficult to find all of the things that I was looking for this year. So Smart Labels is going to make that really, really easy for me. To enter, just send a screenshot of your follow or subscribe on whatever platform that you listen or watch this podcast on to my email, which is adriana@the-pre-nup.com. I'll list that in the show notes. And if you want to know more about Smart Labels, visit qrsmartlabels.com. Thank you to Smart Labels for sponsoring this episode. Michaelene, I'm so excited to have you on today. We start every episode with a cocktail hour, which is kind of just where we chit chat, we get to know you a little bit. But in this one, I wanted to start with something that I thought was so funny. So a few weeks ago, you and I, we had a little FaceTime, we were connecting, and you put on your Instagram story that you put a calendar invite or, your shared calendar with your husband that you were doing the Prenup podcast. So tell this story. I was cracking up.
It's really funny because we have 3 kids and yes. 6, 5, and almost 1. So our
God
life is slightly, thank you. It's a little bit chaotic, right? And yes. He's a fireman, so his schedule is extra. So shared calendar is like Bible in our life. Like we have to have it on point. Like as soon as something changes, an appointment, so everything goes into the calendar. So every once in a while we put something in and then I remember to tell him later.
Yeah.
So I was so excited to connect with you and I knew that we were going to be on this recording together. So I quickly put in the calendar, Michaelene prenup on this date.
Yes.
And then I forgot to tell him about it. And I just kept moving through the day. And then he got home and he was like, is there something we need to talk about? I'm like, I don't know. What happened? And I'm all super concerned, something big happened. And he's like, are you getting a prenup done? And I started crying laughing because I was like, well, we're definitely not going to get a prenup after we've been married. That's not gonna work.
Maybe a post-op. I've come into some money that, you should know about.
Yeah. So I told him all about the podcast. He thought it was quite funny, but I was like, that's when you know someone's name or
yes.
their business name, can create a stir, that's the best. So that's why I thought it was so funny because
it's so funny because I never really talk about the name the prenup, and it kind of came about as like an agreement the brides make with themselves to really just be their best before their wedding, like make themselves knowledgeable and, give themselves all the resources. But
Right.
anyone who comes upon my page is probably like, what an odd name. Like, it looks so, nice and sweet, but like prenups have a pretty bad reputation, bad connotation with it. But
And I'm glad that you said that, because I was thinking, and I was like, well, it makes sense to me, because I think when you're in the industry for so long, you're like, you don't just get to be like, oh, I'm getting married on this date, and then it just magically shows up, and then everything's like fine and dandy. Like, you have to do like the work ahead of time. So I'm like, I get this. Like, the prenup is like all the stuff that happens before the big day, because you can't just show up and think like it's all gonna work.
totally, yeah, because of course, like in legal terms, prenuptial agreement typically deals with finances and things of that nature, protecting yourself. But like, if you break it down, like a prenuptial agreement, like what are we going to agree to before we get married? Like, how are we going to prepare ourselves? But enough about me, because we're here with you today, and I love your page. I love what you put out there. You give such great tips.
Thank
And
you.
I explained in the intro a little bit, you do invitation design as well as coordination.
Mhm.
And right now, you're in California, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm in the Northeast. So wedding season is a little bit different for us, probably, because
Yeah.
we're just like, typically May, June, September, October is our heavy season. Do you guys have any lull because the weather's nicer? So, people can get married all year.
Yeah, we definitely are like, we have two seasons down in Southern California. It's like
Yeah.
summer and getting ready for summer. Like, that's basically it. It's so hot all the time. Although it's cold today, which is and cold by my standards, it's less than 70. So I'm
Oh my
slightly
God.
angry.
Michaelene, it's like 30 here. It's disgusting.
I'm like, it's sunny. Where's this wind coming from? I don't appreciate it. No, our wedding season definitely follows it's really like heavy spring and fall, because summer does get too hot to get married. And a
Sure.
lot of people want to get married outside and not follow that tradition of like being in a church. So
Yeah.
when we've had couples where like they were adamant about using very specific silverware. So we set out all their tables and everything was like beautiful. But by the time that it was time to eat, the silverware was too hot to touch. Like, people
Oh my
couldn't eat. And we were
gosh.
just like, oh, okay. So keep in
Wow.
mind. So we tend to see like people, or like the weddings get really late, because then, they're like, well, we want to get married in August. I'm like, great. Then start it at 7 o'clock at night, because
Right.
it stays light forever over here. So
Yeah.
we'll just
And it's
push
a
it
little
back. So
cooler.
our seasons, they do like ebb and flow a little bit.
Yeah.
But we find like December, like November, December, everything kind of like, because I feel like it's like tropically plants out here. Most things die in the winter, and nobody wants to get married outside when it's ugly. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess it does kind of align a little bit everywhere. And, getting married during the holiday season is a little bit more difficult because there is so much going on. So
yeah.
it is like, I think most wedding professionals would say it's like the latest time. However, for you, I'm sure a lot of people are beginning to start their invitation process, their save the dates, things like that. So I want to get into some of that today
Okay.
as well. So when is the best time to start thinking about, save the dates, invitations? Like, how far in advance do you suggest?
Yeah. Okay. So I always tell couples, and they think I'm crazy, but I say, when you say yes, you're going to get engaged, or you get engaged, right? You kind of pick your date time.
Yeah.
As soon as you find your photographer, your stationery person should be next. And they're always like, no, you're just saying that because it's you. I'm like, no, for real. Like, because when you start you pick your date and then you pick your photographer, then you say, the next step is this, essentially your engagement photos.
Yeah.
And so while people are like on Pinterest and they're pinning all the beautiful photos and all the beautiful poses, then like later down the road, they go, oh, well, we want to do save the dates, but we want to use this image. And I'm like, see how these don't match anymore. Like, the idea of what you wanted on a save the date doesn't match the photo that you took.
Right.
And not necessarily style, because I think we can, adapt to anybody's style and like come up, but like if all your photos are close-ups, you're going to have writing over your face. Or if all your things are really far away, it's going to be hard to get a close-up of your hands. So it's like
Totally.
you have to think, okay, we're getting married, we're going to do engagement photos, and the very next thing would be your save the dates. So like hit me up and let me help you plan so it's
Absolutely.
successful. Yeah. And then
And oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
no, I say, and
Please.
then as soon as they pick their save the dates, then I go, okay, let's start thinking about how we're going to do our invitations and things like that.
Totally. Yes. Because people don't realize also how cohesive you're going to want everything to be. So, your wedding style, you're going to want that to align with your invitations, which should align with your save the dates, your monograms, all of your design elements. They're all going to kind of blend together to create your wedding style. So it is true. Like, it's not something that people probably have at the forefront of their minds, but it is really important because, you don't want this like very bold, monochromatic, modern, save the date. And then you have this like airy, pretty, whimsical, invitation to follow or whatever, if that's your wedding style. So that is a good tip. And especially if you're going to do something like very intricate the way you do, because you do a lot of custom as well, right?
Right. I love doing custom. I think that is really where like I thrive and I find the excitement because while people are getting married, essentially you're sharing your love story, right? Like
Yeah.
you're sharing your photos, you're sharing all the things that make you you. So when you say like, hey, we're going to send out invitations, it's essentially the first sentence in your love story. So like, let's like make it this really great sentence so that people are excited to come to your wedding and then they can expect what to do or like what's going to come at the wedding. So, if you have invitations that are, I would say like, I don't want to say anything bad, but like very
Okay.
cookie cutter and they don't
Sure.
have any personality, then your guests aren't going to be excited to show up or like
Right.
they're not going to be like, um, this is somewhere I want to be or I can't wait to see what happens. And so when you can, my goal is like when your guests are opening up their invitation, they go, oh, this is only could have come from, X and Y. So it can only come from that couple because this is like infused with their personality, with their style. This shares their love story. And it like becomes so much more than just a piece of paper.
It's so true because first impressions are everything. And that invitation, that save the date, really, like that first thing that goes out, that is going to set the tone for your entire wedding.
Yeah.
And everything should fall in line with that.
Right.
So I think I want to break this down just like in layman's terms, because you and I talk about it and we're in it and we do it every day. But I think a lot of people might not fully understand like what needs to go into their invitation suite or what an invitation suite even is. Like there's so many words in the wedding dictionary that I think trip people up. So Michaelene, what is a wedding invitation suite?
Yeah, so I'd say your wedding invitation suite really consists of an invitation which gives the very basic like we are inviting you to our wedding day.
Yeah.
And then that can include, I mean, obviously that will include the names, the dates, times, place, and it's like I like to keep it pretty simple. I don't think it makes sense to clutter that invitation because that's usually the piece that people keep as
Yeah.
their keepsake. So if it's got like everything on there, it feels really busy. But then that's where you see the suite come in and you have an RSVP card. And then that's the card that they, fill out their name and they send it back, let you know if they're going to come. And then you have a details card. And that's where we put all the very important details or the things that you just want your guests to know. So if you have a dress code or if parking is weird or if you want to link your registry information, they go hotels, stuff like that all goes on the details and they can keep it all should match, not be like exact copies, but like all should match so it feels cohesive. And then obviously you have your envelope that has to come back with the RSVP card, and then you have your mailing envelope, and then you've got like the pretty things like the envelope liner and the wax seals and the belly bands, everything to help hold everything together and like keep it like a cute little package. So I say like the basic has to at least be an invitation and an RSVP card of some sort because
Yes.
otherwise it just feels like a birthday party.
Exactly. And there is, and I want to get into in a little bit some digital stuff, but there is an element of a wedding invitation that really separates a wedding from other types of events. And
Mhm.
you want your wedding to feel a little bit more elevated. And for me personally, I think that in our ever evolving and changing world, no matter how technologically advanced we get, the snail mail invitation will be a non-negotiable for me. It's just something that you can hold in your hand, something tangible. That is the essence of the beginning of your wedding and
Yeah.
letting people know what kind of event it's going to be. If you're having a backyard barbecue, it's super cash, you're texting people and invite, that's different. But for most people,
Mhm.
they want their wedding to be this like really special event. And
Right. I mean, essentially, like your goal when you get married is like to only have one, right? And so,
totally. Yes,
so
that's the goal.
and not saying that like you have to go like crazy all out, but
Yeah.
there is something to be said when you have something made for you for this day. Just like your dress, is tailored for you and the suit is made for you and you have like the personalized handkerchief and all the things, like having invitations that are made just for you that explain, your details in your wedding. Like it just feels special. It really does.
It
And I
does.
think and I think now, even after the world went a little bit crazy and prices went a little bit nuts around, across the board, I think
Sure.
guests are starting to understand the importance of being invited to a wedding and how much
Yes.
that actually costs. So when you can have that paper snail mail come in the mail and you're like, oh my God, we got invited. Like it's an honor to me because I know it's expensive. And so when someone wants me there, I'm like, yes, made the date.
It feels elite too. And like that is another aspect of it that I think we don't touch on enough either. Even right now, like I'm getting all of my Christmas cards in the mail. And I love getting a piece of mail and I love seeing that. But that has always been exciting for me. I don't know if that's like a personal thing, but I think everyone kind of loves that. And I hope that you're right, that people do understand like what an honor it is. Like this is, most people don't understand this either. And I hope anyone who's planning a wedding thinks about this a little bit. But most people don't know, like, you're not making your money back most of the time in gifts. Like, that's a myth. Unless someone is generously paying for your wedding, which, God bless. I certainly had help from my parents, which was like amazing and super generous. And
Mhm.
still, like you don't make it back in most cases. So it really is, it's such an honor. And, people do put so much emphasis and detail into it. And that's why they come to you, because you have such a creative eye and you do such beautiful design work. Do you have a favorite invitation that you've done or a suite that you've done?
You know, actually, I feel like I just created one that I'm absolutely in love with, and I'm so excited about it because it's actually going to be featured in California Wedding Day magazine. So
Stop it. Oh my gosh,
thank
congratulations.
you.
That's amazing.
Thank you. I'm really excited for this one because I think this was like the epitome of storytelling for me. The theme of the wedding was like mountain adventure but romance. And that was it. That was like that's what you get, and like use these like colors ish. I'm like, okay. And so it's like, you're planning, you like, and so then like all the like, I have like a Rolodex in my head of all the ideas and like things start coming up. Like, what can I do? How can I make this special? How do I make this
Yes.
look old and not look vintage? But like going through like check off the boxes. And so this invitation, we did like deckled edges, which is like the raw edged
Mm.
paper, but then we painted it in like gold, so the edges of the paper were like rolled in gold, and the entire
Wow.
invitation was written in like hand scroll, so it just looks like a letter, like we're just inviting you to this. So it felt really simple but romantic. We used like an overlay, like so it was like clear vellum paper, and then we like love is an adventure, and we put a picture of the mountains in the background. So we brought out all the bells and whistles for this. And I mean, even to the name cards, we had like gold tassels hanging off the little placemats, and it
Oh,
turned out so pretty, and I'm so excited about it that I
oh
can't wait
my
to see the
gosh.
feature, because I think it's gonna actually supposed to hit It's supposed to hit stores December 9th, so this should be out pretty soon. So
Oh my gosh. If you remember, tag me in it, but I'm going to be looking out for it because I'm so excited to see it. It sounds gorgeous.
yeah, I think really what become of it, like I love when I get to like the satisfaction I get when I see like an invitation unfold specifically for a couple. I think that's what it really is like I I had a couple who initially thought they were going to just do like digital invitations. They're like, it's not a big deal. We're not that worried about it. Our friends, they're like, understand us. We're super chill. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, but let me pitch you this idea. I'm like, how we can do this slightly
What if we
different.
just
Yeah. And I was like, that sounds great, but no, we're not doing that. And she was my friend, so it was okay that I spoke to her
Yes.
that way. And it was funny because even like their save the dates, they wanted to use their engagement photos, and they were on this like journey of like they got engaged and then they were engaged for a couple of years. It was a while. And
Yeah.
like they were just taking their time. They were like, no rush. But when we sent out their save the date, she's like, we kind of want to do something funny. It's our personality, a little bit sassy. And so we printed their save the dates in like all matte where like it's not shiny or anything, and
Yeah.
then we have this process where it's like spot gloss where we can tell the print where to, like, you can print in certain places that are glossy. So I used a text clear print, like you could only see it if you like use the light, but it was like, it's about damn time. It's like their song, and so like if you looked at it, it looked fine, and then you turn it and you're like, oh, okay.
That is so cute.
And I'm like,
It's
it's
those
simple,
little,
but yeah,
yes, but it's those little things that make a difference. It
yeah,
really is.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. So, you do a lot of delicate and intricate details as well. I've seen some
Mhm.
of your work where you have, these beautiful ribbons and pearls and, some of those details. So I wanted to ask you from a professional's standpoint,
Yeah.
when you're sending those invitations, do you have any tips on actually mailing them to prevent damage?
I mean, yeah, I would say my biggest tip is let me do it for you.
Leave it to the pros here. Come on.
like just hire me from start to finish. Let me just mail them, because then I'll make sure they're right. But
Yes.
no, I do. I mean, I take them every time I make an invitation. It doesn't matter. I think even if I've done a similar one as far as like the components, I always take it to the post office beforehand, and I'm like, tell me what this needs, and I like make sure.
Yeah.
So most of the time I always use high quality paper so that
Yeah.
it's not thin, there's no ripping, there's no tearing of that sort. So when I use like liners, I'll use like the tissue paper to make sure like the pearls don't poke through, and I'll like make sure that the wax seal is laying flat, that the ribbon is tied correctly. So you can absolutely do the DIY version, and there's plenty of YouTube videos and show you like this is how you make a wax seal, and you can do it. But like if you don't understand how the post office works, because they have a special machine, and like
Yes.
if you can't machine it, then we have to hand process it, and if we hand process it, you're going to have extra postage. And if you don't know that and you just send them all out in the mail, you're going to get them all back, and all that postage is going to be ruined. Your envelopes are going to be ruined. And like, these are the questions you have to know to ask. And a lot of people don't. They don't think,
Right.
oh, I'll just send it in the mail. It'll be fine. It's letter size, right?
Right.
But that's not always the case. So
Yeah. And that's something that people don't think about a lot too when they factor in even budget for their invitations. The postage is
yeah.
so expensive, especially if you have like a really beautiful thick paper and
Mhm.
an intricate invitation. Like it can get pretty hefty.
So yeah, and you like see like those invitations maybe like on Pinterest when they have all the vintage postage on the side, right? And like maybe the postage stamp was like 2 cents, but you could
Yes.
pay like $4 for that one postage stamp. So if
Yeah.
you do it wrong and you don't add up correctly, and you've got like $80 worth of postage just down the drain. So
Oh my
like we
gosh.
have tricks about all of that. I always tell, like, when I submit like a quote to somebody and they're like, hey, what would it cost? And I like break out all the pieces. Okay, if we have a wax stamp, is this going to add 2 cents, like 2 extra stamps? If we do this, it's going to add extra. So like I tell them so that they can factor that
Yeah.
in the beginning. But yeah, it is an item that most people forget about, because even when they're like, okay, it's going to cost me 3 stamps to send out my invitation. You still have to think about the stamp that has to go on the RSVP envelope that goes on the inside. And like they're like, oh yeah, there's another stamp I have to put. Otherwise, people aren't going to send me the RSVP back.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you cannot forget to do those on your RSVPs because,
right.
you know, you don't want to give your guests a chore to do too. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's just a bad look at that point.
yeah,
So
and
I want to talk to you also about the wording on save the dates, invitations, the whole nine.
mhm.
So for save the date, what should go on and what should not go on a save the date? Is there anything that's like not necessary?
I definitely don't think like the venue is necessary for the save the date. Like
Mhm.
city, yes. Like let
Yes.
them know where they're going to be traveling to, but like
Sure.
I don't think you need to ever put like the location of the actual wedding.
So
And
why is that? Like why I know we all do it, but is that just like an industry thing that we, you know, we've always done, so that's like why we do it? Is there a reason for that?
I think the reason for that was because it sort of makes a reason for the invitation, right? So
Okay.
if you give all the information on the save the date, then they're going to be like, well, why'd you send out an invitation? Or like,
Totally.
why are we double dipping information? And
Makes
then I think that
sense.
helps just like unclutter the stationery that you have to send out or you should be sending out. Because, yeah, like the save the date, obviously, this like I like to put save our date. It makes it just feel slightly more personal, but like save our date, I always put their
Yeah.
names, and then I put the city that the wedding is going to be held at or the reception, whichever they're having. And then obviously the date and formal invitation to follow so that they know, like, hey, you're not missing information. We're letting you know ahead of time. And
Right.
I like to include photos, but that's not, that's not everybody's preference. Some people don't like to include the photo.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's other ways to do it. Like you can always include like a photo in the envelope liner if you're like not keen on having it in there, or like on the back side if you want to do like double-sided printing.
Sure.
So there's like options for that as far as design, but I think like the save the date information should be fairly basic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what about invitation? So this is more layered because I guess it depends on, you know, whether your ceremony and reception is at the same
Mhm.
place and a few other details, but more broad spectrum, like what could you tell people? Like this should go on, this should not go on.
Well, I think that the wedding invite itself, yeah, like you said, it has so many different like uh areas that you have to be aware of. Like, are you including your parents' names? And traditionally that's like you would include your parents' names if they're paying for the wedding. And
Right.
if that's the case, do you put both sets of parents? Are your parents still together? Now are you putting step parents, and like
So
how
that
do
is
we
something that like I took for granted so much because, you know, when you do other people's weddings, that's something that's like, okay, like they'll figure that out. They'll pick
Yeah.
their design. They'll word it the way they want. But when I was getting married, my husband's parents are split up and they like we were getting help from everyone, which was like so lovely and sweet, but I was like,
Yeah.
what are we going to do about the wording of the invitation?
Yeah.
So, you know, it turns into a whole thing. So, let's say, you know, one or both sets of parents are split up. What would you recommend for that?
I would say that if they're not keen on having everybody's name listed, it's just say
Yes.
together with our families. And then
Love
like
it.
that covers everybody, and
Beautiful.
that makes it nice and simple and easy. But if, traditionally the wedding was hosted by the bride's parents because the bride's parents were giving her away. So
Sure.
it would be like the daughter of, John and Jane are getting married to this person, son of, and then put his parents' names. And so like you're
Right.
kind of like giving a timeline, almost felt more like a news article than
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
But
You're
now
giving people a little
you
like family tray.
yeah. And I think that like if you are okay with that and both sets of parents are together and that's what you want and you want to honor them in that way, like great, do that. But I always say like simple is better. And then instead of like honoring them with their name on the invitation, I would say like make sure at the reception that you stop whatever you're doing during speeches and like say thank you in front of
Yeah.
everybody and like call them out, like not just to our parents, but like thank you, mom and dad, thank you, his mom and dad, thank you, step parents, like we appreciate all of it. And I think that almost feels more like a like a shout out in a way, and then something that they'll like be more appreciative than just having their names on the invitation. So
Yeah, definitely. Because when you get into like, 4 to 8 people, being listed, it's like
yeah.
that's taking up a lot of space on the invite.
And you've got like, now everyone's got different last names, and like, how is this person got remarried, this person didn't, and they don't want to know people to know they didn't get, and then like the dynamics of it all, I'm like, it's just an invitation. Let's just families.
No, totally, totally. Do you think it's overkill to put both couples' first names as well?
I've seen it I don't, my name is really long, obviously. It's 10 letters. So,
Yeah.
so I'm
It's
like,
beautiful.
I'm
I love
good.
your name so much, but yeah, it takes up a lot of space.
It does. And I know that. And JT's is only 2 letters. So I'm like, if we can like take up the least amount of real estate, we're good.
Right.
But I've seen it mostly, I mostly see it when it's like a doctor. Like the doctor wants to use their, their professional name. They want to be like Mr., or Dr. this and Mrs. this, and they'll use their both first names. I don't
Sure.
see it too often when you have both names, although I think that when you're addressing, is that when you're doing your Excel, it's like, I've seen a couple of times, like, so people fill out their Excel sheets and they send them to me, and then that way I can print on their envelopes. And so while I'm going through it, although I don't know how people's names are spelled, I do go through it to like make sure there's not like a weird typo or something feels so off, and then I'll reach out. But one couple I had a while ago, they were filling out like the guest +1.
Yeah.
Right. And they were just putting the +1 as like a placeholder. And then they forgot to change one of their placeholders. And it was like Mike and Mike's crazy new girlfriend. And I was like getting ready to print. And I was like, can I change? I don't think Mike's going to appreciate that coming from his invitation.
Oh my gosh, disaster ensues. Oh my
man. And I was like through all the checkpoints, and I was like, okay, just getting ready. Oh, whoa. You're like, okay, never mind. We're gonna pause on that one.
Yet another reason to hire a professional for this type of service, like another set of eyes. Never hurt anybody.
No. Never.
So let's talk about, actually, because you brought up +1s. I want to talk about some wedding things that can be a little bit controversial. So in addition to being an invitation designer, doing wedding stationery, you're also an event coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
So you are like in the trenches of weddings, like you have a deep understanding of it inside and out. So I'm sure you see a lot of the common woes that couples have. And one of them is the +1. And there's a lot of facets to it. But you had a video that I loved on Instagram, and I think you said like why you should invite someone to your wedding that you don't know, and you like flipped around and you're like, you shouldn't. Which I thought was so cute and funny, and like to an extent I do agree. But what are your thoughts? And it varies depending on like how intimate your wedding is, but what are your thoughts on, like, let's say Mike does have a crazy new girlfriend. Like, should she be invited to the wedding? Should she not? Is that like the right place to meet someone, in your opinion?
Right. I think that this really, like, that video really stemmed for me, like, quick backstory. I was married once before, and it was really short. But that wedding was textbook, do what you're supposed to do, which is probably why I feel so like, do whatever you want.
Yes, definitely.
I definitely, like there were a lot of regrets with that first wedding. And so one of them was like, oh, you need to invite grandma's neighbor from, back east. And I was like, I don't even know who grandma is, let alone grandma's neighbor. Like, and it became this like snowball of crazy, like, who are we inviting to this wedding? Because it started to not feel like it was about us. It started to feel like, oh, how is our family going to celebrate the fact that their kids are getting married, which I can appreciate. Like, as I have my own, I always think about this one day, like, shoot, I'm going to have to really rein myself in, because I don't want to be like the crazy mom who's like, no, you have to invite my best friend.
Of course.
But I do think that I had this like really arbitrary like rule that if you didn't know my favorite color, then you weren't coming. like, and it's pretty evident, like, what my favorite color is, and
Yeah.
so when you stare at my Instagram, it's like pink everywhere, but if you didn't know that, I was like, why? Why? Because I'm not gonna, and I have this whole chart. I have a chart, and I think it's up on my website still, but I have this chart. It's like how to break down your guest list. And it would like start like, are they a coworker or are they not? And then you would like go through this like line chart and essentially got down if like you had to spend 5 minutes on your wedding day talking to this person, would you want to?
Right.
And if the answer is no, like, why are they there?
Why are they invited? Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like obviously you don't want to be like rude about it. Like if Mike's got a crazy new girlfriend and nobody's met her and you're like, maybe like, hey Mike, we're limited on space. It's not like anyone's gonna actually like challenge you on that.
Sure.
But if like Mike is, engaged to crazy new girlfriend, then I would say, an engaged person is someone they're gonna spend the rest of their life with, hopefully. Even if she is crazy, maybe you just like have the coordinator say, hey, this chick needs to be like under control. And then I have my eyes on her all night long. And I'm like, oh, honey, I love that. Let me take that drink for you. And they're like, walk away, right?
Swap it for
like,
water.
Yeah, we're good. Oh, they said that this one was bad. I'm going to take that. So I do it. I do it all the time. And I'm like, I'm here to make the couple's day as stress-free as possible. So if it's me like playing babysitter in a nice way, like I'll do it. I don't mind. I haven't had a moment where I was like, absolutely not, you're crossing the line. I think the people who like need to be like wrangled understand that they are, wild a little bit, and then they get it. And so I'm like, and I'm very honest about it. Like I'll say it at the rehearsal dinner. I'll say it like, hey guys, like I have, strict rules to follow, and I don't ever say like who it's from, so they can never blame anybody. But I'm like, hey, they say like we're down to 2 drinks before the wedding, like nobody's having more than 2, and if I go in there and I see shots, and I'm like, thanks guys, and I like take them, and I'm like, I'll be back after the wedding,
we're gonna steal them. That's another thing too. Like I never understand why the push for groom and groomsmen to like drink to their heart's content pre-ceremony. There's so many reasons why it's just a terrible idea, but one of them is like you are going to look terrible in the photos. Like it's just not going to be a good look. I actually have a pretty funny story. So even like, we all make mistakes, but even with all my experience and like everything I tell people, I was a bridesmaid in a wedding that was 2 months before my wedding. It was like one of my dear friends. So, in that time when you're planning, like you're busy, like, you're missing meals, you're like running all over the place. So I'm like down weight. So, I can't really hold my liquor as much as I typically could. And we're on the bus on the way from ceremony to reception because it was a church ceremony. And the groomsmen have 4 Locos. And I'm 30. I haven't had a 4 Loko since I was like 18. And I'm like, oh, I remember them. Like, mind you, haven't eaten all day. So like some of the bridesmaids were like, oh, we'll like share one. I am drunk. Like I am drunk before reception starts. Like we're in the pictures, and thank God I didn't like ruin all of them, but some of them my eyes are just like so glazed over. I'm like, you dumb ass, you know better. You're so stupid. Why would you do that? It's such a bad idea. Like party after the pictures are done, knock yourself out, do whatever you want. But, oh, come on.
And I think that it also as a logistics kind of mindset, it always slows the timeline down. So it always takes, so if you're like partying before, right? And then your like movements are slower, your reaction is slower, you're like, so then all the stuff that like you could bang out of the way and then get to the partying at the end, it all starts to take longer. And then like the drunkenness gets harder because then they're like, now I'm bored, give me another one. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not.
And timeline is everything. Like it is absolutely everything on the day. So everything we could do to stay to timeline, including not drinking before ceremony.
So like you have the one shot or whatever, but it was funny because I was reading this study about weddings, and they said that there's a huge, and they did like a full medical study on this, and they said the difference between being nervous and being doubtful is like the factor to whether or not the marriage will hit 5 years. And so they said, as guys are like, oh, I'm nervous, I need to take a drink, I need to take a drink of this and that, like that was completely different than like if the bride was like, I need a shot because I'm worried. And then like her tale was like, so when I see, so it's like bringing back to the alcohol, if I see a bride who's like, I need shots, I'm so worried. I'm like, shots aren't going to fix this. Let's figure out what's going on so that we can like move through this, because I think when people take a shot because they're nervous, like whatever, but like when
Yeah.
someone's drinking because they're doubtful, I think that's like the bigger problem.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's not a good crutch. Like if you're someone who can drink socially and you like it, it takes a little edge off, that's fine. But like at any moment where you're drinking to solve a problem,
Yeah.
it's the wrong direction.
Right. And I always get worried about what they give people. They're like, bring in like you have to like, I think it sounds silly, but like clear liquids, please. Like if you're gonna take a shot of something or give a shot to the bride, do not bring her red wine. Like do not bring
Yes.
her a whiskey. Do not bring her these things, because if she spills even a drop, it is going to show up everywhere.
And the same thing goes for snacks, hors d'oeuvres. Like if you're bringing someone a shrimp cocktail, do not bring cocktail sauce for the bride. Like red, no, doesn't need to be near the dress.
Don't need any melted cheese.
No.
None of this stuff, please. Keep the butter away.
It's the last thing we need. The last thing we need. Oh my gosh. Okay. So another controversial wedding topic I have for you.
Okay.
Children at weddings. What do you think?
Well, okay, so yeah, let's talk about it. It's definitely
Yes.
one of those topics that I didn't realize was going to be controversial, because it felt like such a common thing in the wedding world that when I made my first reel about a kid-free wedding, and it wasn't even about a kid-free wedding, it was like, if you're having a kid-free wedding, this is how you would say it, right?
Totally.
Instagram went bonkers. Like the video hit like 2.7 million views in like a week. And I was like, what is happening? And then it turned into, well, what's the cutoff age? And then that video hit like 4 million. And then I had brought it up again. And like, it just like people were very adamant about like what weddings are about and who should be invited. My personal opinion is that if you do not want kids at your wedding, there is no shame in the game at all.
Totally. I 100% agree. And that's so funny. Like, what's the cutoff age? The cutoff age is whatever the hell I damn well please. The cutoff people are whoever the hell I damn well please. Like, if you don't like it, don't go. Like, it is quite simple.
I thought it was too, but the internet decided no. They were very angry because it was like, oh, if it's adult free, but I'm a nursing mom, of course I'm allowed to take my baby. And I was like, no, like, you're not.
No,
like,
you're
that's
not.
the rule.
Absolutely. And, if you have, like, I don't want to say being a nursing mom is a medical condition, because it's not. Like, you have a responsibility. So like, let's say you simply cannot get out of work. Like that's a responsibility that you need to tend to. If you are like, you're strictly breastfeeding, you're not, pumping, and like, that's it, then your responsibilities lie elsewhere. You can't just do anything you want when you have a strict set of rules that you're abiding by personally.
Yeah.
And as long as there's no hard feelings, like I think we talk about this a lot, oh, guests should do this or shouldn't do that. But I think also it's important for couples to not have hard feelings as well. Like if someone can't attend your wedding or can't do something in a certain capacity surrounding your wedding, like this is a celebration. This is not an indication of their support for you or your marriage. 100%. Of course, it would be great to have them there, but hopefully if you're close enough with someone, like this isn't the make or break of your life. Like,
no, and I totally agree. I agree 100%. I say if as the couple, if you're going to stipulate there are no kids, then you have to be willing to accept that people are going to say no. And you have to be okay with that. So if you put the rule in place and then you get pissed that people are not following or can't follow your rule, like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
So
I'm so with you there. Yeah. It's something that like, you and I think I could say are pretty rational people. Probably people be like, yeah, you're questionable, Adriana. But no, I do think that when you're thinking about it logically and rationally, like it's plain and simple. You are inviting who you're inviting. You're not inviting who you're not inviting.
Right.
But I do know people who like would make those rational, logical rules. And then when someone can't abide by them, they like lose their minds.
Yeah.
And it's part of this like little wedding bubble that you get yourself into because it's so special. And like, it's this time in your life where it's so much build up and hype and excitement. And you do feel special and you should.
Yeah.
But I think sometimes, like, even the best person in the world can kind of get it conflated and be like, turn into a diva a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I think that because most people want to be like the main character in their story, right? And
Of
so,
course.
and I mean, like, that's natural. That's how we all live. So you have a couple who's like, we're going to have this amazing wedding. We're going to invite all our adult friends. It's going to be the best date night ever. And then you have the friend from college who's like, yo, I can't come. And then they're going to be like, wait a second, you don't want to celebrate me? And then like, that's got nothing to do with the fact that it's like, we don't love you. We're so excited to celebrate you after you get back from your honeymoon. We'll go on like a family dinner date, like whatever, the accommodation that they can make.
Yes.
But yeah, when you like put the rule in and then you get upset about the outcome, that seems quite silly to me. But that's what a lot of people were saying when they were chatting on Instagram, because I did my best to try to follow all the comments, and it just like was like a lost cause. Like I couldn't.
At that point, it gets like impossible.
I'm like, every once in a while I'd read one. I'm like, what are we talking about? Like, this doesn't make any sense anymore. So, but I think it does come in. It as a couple, if you're making that rule, I also don't believe it has to be a blanket rule, right? Like, it doesn't have to be like, we said no kids, so no kids all around. Like, when we say like no kids, but I'm inviting my sister and her niece and my nieces.
Right.
And if you're the 5 kids at the wedding and everybody else is like, well, how come I couldn't bring my kids? It's like, because you're not my niece, you know what I mean? And I feel like that's where, yeah, it does. I don't feel like any of the rules ever have to be blanket. Like, I
agree with you.
So if you want to like exclude up and down, or if you want to say, like, we're not having kids under, or like, one girl actually wrote in and she was like, yeah, we got an invitation to an adult only wedding. And she's like, we were married and I was 18 and I wasn't sure if I was allowed to come. And I was like, oh, that's a really good point.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense when you put it that way, but it's like, of course, like I've been a kid invited to adults only weddings. And by a kid, I mean like 15 to 18. Like there weren't children, but in my family, like not that, we were slinging back drinks, but like if I had a glass of wine, it wasn't a big deal. And like before then, it's not really appropriate. I mean, 15 is probably not appropriate either, but like, especially if you're close enough with someone, which by the way, if they're invited to your wedding, you should be. You should be able to have those open, candid conversations. And if you can't, maybe reconsider inviting those people to your wedding.
Right. I feel like there's always an accommodation if you're like, I need to have an adult only wedding because maybe our venue doesn't have enough space for me to invite all my kids, but I need my best friend there and she just happens to have a 1-year-old. I would say, okay, let's figure out how we can make this work. And maybe it's like, if you're getting married at a church, like, hey, maybe you can just hang out in the lobby for the ceremony. I would love for you to be there, but if you're in the back seat, so if he starts to cry, please just take him out, because and then like you said, if you're like close enough friends, I'd be like 100%, like however I can make your day better. But I also think that goes into play with somebody who's in the wedding industry or who has planned a wedding, to understand how difficult juggling all these people and all these like their accommodations can be. So if someone says like, hey, I need you to wear all red to my wedding, I'm like, sure, I don't even care. I'm not gonna ask. It's not gonna look great. I'll be there.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, some people get like really butthurt about the dress code and like if there's a certain color. It's like it's one day. Like if you can't accommodate it, unless it's really just outlandish. But then again, just don't go, because it's not something that you're interested in, clearly. One other thing, exactly. Yes. One other thing we touched on a little bit when we were talking about the invites, but when a parent is either contributing to the wedding or paying for the wedding in total, how much say do you think said parent should have in the planning, let's say, like guest lists or even like the plans in general.
Yeah. No, I see this all the time where parents go, "Well, you're going to invite my friend because I'm paying for it." And I don't know if I don't think that if you give a gift that there should be strings attached anywhere. I
Yeah.
would I would say that my parents also helped us, and my
Mhm.
husband's parents helped us too, and we definitely listened to what they
Yeah,
had to say, but the decision was ours to make, which I'm so thankful for because I know that's not always the case for somebody.
totally.
So, I say that if before people even start talking about budget and like when we're going to get married, I say to the couple, like, I hope that you sat down and you made an agreement among yourselves, like, this is what we're going to allow at our wedding. And if
Yeah.
it's a small guest list, then we're not budging on it because of budget. And if it does become, well, we can't afford it, have a smaller wedding. Like,
Yeah,
do it on your own
absolutely.
without the help, and then you can have it 100% your way. Um,
Yes.
but I think that when parents start attaching strings, it starts to feel more like a bribe than it does a gift. And I think that adds to the stress of the environment or the situation because planning really doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't have to be the most terrible thing ever. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of people think that, like, okay, Lord help me, I'm going to go through a whole year of planning for this wedding. I think if you're doing things that are aligned with your goals, then the situation becomes really easy. And yeah, you'll probably hit road bumps, but I don't think that um when a parent or a person or anybody says like, hey, we would like to help pay for your wedding, but in return we want XYZ, I'm like, that
It's
doesn't
kind
really
of
feel
messed up.
nice.
It's a messed up way to do it,
Yeah.
and I'm with you. I think it's cultural too. Yeah, and I'm very fortunate that like my parents were ready and willing to like do whatever I wanted, and I'm a planner, so they kind of trusted what I was going to do regardless. But I also I was so and still am so appreciative of how generous and loving they were that there were things that they never even said like, "Oh, we want this or that," but like I knew would be important to them and that was important to me. It was just like a respect thing. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's something to think about too. And I think, like you said, I think that's so smart. Like hard and fast rules at the beginning. Talk about what you're not willing to bend on.
Mhm.
And if and when that offer is made to contribute financially from parents or whomever,
Mhm.
I think you can meet it with something that's like, we are so grateful and lucky to have such generous people in our lives. We just want to let you know, like, these are the rules that we kind of came up with because
Yeah.
we want it for our wedding. And as long as you're okay with that, like, we will happily accept
Yeah.
the money. But like,
Yeah.
you see it happen all the time. Like, and I get both sides too. It's
Yeah.
like, well, I'm giving you all this money. Like, we can't have my best friend. She's been like an aunt to you. She's given you birthday gifts your whole life. It's like, well, we have a 30-person guest list. Like, we love her, but she's not on
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
as long as there's communication, respect, and understanding upfront, lay it on the line, like everyone just puts out their expectations,
Mhm.
I think we could avoid so much of this.
Yeah, and I think that a really good point too is if you're like have a parent who says like isn't able to say like here's just money. They're like, "Hey, what can I help with?" Let them help with a part that you don't really care about.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
that it's like so if they make the decision, you're like, "Whatever, I don't even care because this is the part that's important to me." Because I feel like the guest list is the harder part. And to me when I hear it with couples and I've heard it with my friends and they're like, they say, well, we're paying for it, so this person's coming. And I said, it's not always about the money. It's more about the experience of the day. Like, I don't want my day to be filled with people that I don't know. Now,
Mhm.
whether I want a, donut bar versus a cake bar, that doesn't make anything to me. So I don't care. So you want to take care of desserts and you want to fill that table up with pies, go for it.
Have at
If
it.
that's your favorite thing, as my mom, like, go for it. And I'm like super happy for you for that. Um,
Yes.
so I think that's also like a point like, hey, maybe you can help us with the bar and then they can pick out the signature drink for the night. Like, cool. I don't even care because I'm going to drink champagne all night. So it's like, you can, I feel like there's ways to work around, but I think the respect is the big thing. I think if you're going to
Definitely.
accept money from somebody, then respect at least their voice. You don't necessarily feel like you should have to take their request, but
Yeah.
if you can't be respectful, then I feel like that's also bad on the couple. Just
Totally.
as like the parents would be, or the person giving would be like, use it as bribery. I feel like that's just not respectful.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's really good advice. Like, keep yourself accountable, be respectful, just like have good understandings.
Right.
So, Michaelene, I want to play a little game with you. So,
Okay.
I handcrafted it for you, and it's called Tradition or Trash.
Ooh, okay.
Okay. So, I'm going to go through some like standard wedding traditions with you, and you tell me if you think they are tradition or you can throw them in the trash.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
So excited.
Tradition number 1, bride should wear white.
Ooh, I love it.
You love it.
I love it. I love it. And I understand not, but
Yes.
I love a beautiful white gown.
I love it too. Like, even for surrounding events, shower, bachelorette party, things like that, I'm like, just do it. Like, I seldom wear white in my life. Like in the summer, a little bit a t-shirt, but like it's your time to wear
Yeah.
white stuff. Just go for it if you can. And white's not everyone's color, but if it is, like, come on, just
I
do
feel
it.
like it's one of those special moments where like I feel like even in prom, like right, like prom and homecoming, you don't normally see girls wearing white dresses
No,
because it's sort of feels like it's reserved for that day. And even if you wear it for like the ceremony and then you go like wild and out for your reception because it's your thing, like I'm all
sure.
about it. But like having your moment in a white dress is like I think it's really special. And I also kind of take it from the perspective of the groom too. Like there's
Yeah,
probably not many times in his life that he would have like envisioned his bride walking down in a different color. Although if that's like your personality and like black is your jam, can
sure.
also be very beautiful.
It
But
is. Yes,
I feel
yes.
like it's like a moment that like I imagine both people kind of like look forward to at least once in their life.
I think so. You can wear any other color any time in your life. Like, but you know, I don't want people to come after us on the internet. So, do what you want.
You can do what you want, but you're gonna look great in white, I promise.
100%. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. Um, Tradition number 2, couple should not see each other before the ceremony.
They shouldn't or should.
Shouldn't.
I vote they should see each other before the ceremony. I say trash it. And I
Yeah.
would say take it a step further, and I get this because I've done it, so I understand like the appeal of like waiting, but like I would suggest to couples, and I love suggesting, and they all think I'm crazy and I can't wait for this trend to catch on, but it's literally to wake up together, have breakfast together, get ready together. And then if
Yes.
you need like an hour apart with your girls and your guys, like do that, but like when you when because timelines are everything, right? And when I'm looking at a day's timeline, your wedding day, like as the bride, you spend less time with the one person you're supposed to be with than any other person that day. Like
It's true.
you spend all morning getting ready, you spend all morning getting dressed, you're running around, you're doing crazy, and then say like your ceremony starts at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and then at that point you're taking photos and you're with other people and you're doing all the things, and it's not till like 9 o'clock at night when you're like, whew, let's sit down and like, how was your day?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love the idea of like waking up and like having breakfast together calmly and like helping each other get ready in the morning calmly. Like I love that idea.
That's cute. I
So I
like
vote
it.
that
I
one.
like it. So trash that one. All right. Love it. What about a cake cut? Tradition or trash?
I say keep. I say
Keep it.
keep the tradition. I like
Me
it.
too. Me
I
too.
think it's fun. I'm not like a huge fan of like cake smash because I don't want people's makeup to get ruined and I don't want chocolate up someone's nose and things like that. But
Yeah,
I like a cake cut. I think it feels symbolic. I don't know.
definitely.
Maybe I'm old school, but I like it.
I like it too. And it breaks my heart because I see so many, especially younger couples, like they don't want a cake and they don't like just do like a little something. You don't have to do a tiered cake. It's just like a
Yeah.
little tiny, and they just want to do away with it. And I don't even like love cake, but there's something about it. You're right. Like
Yeah.
the cutting of the cake, it's so sentimental and
Yeah.
special to me. Like just Just keep it.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, I'll
It's
say
so
that
cute.
too. Like if the couple's like, we're not doing a giant cake for everybody, but great. Let's go get like this little like I think the cake style that's pretty in right now is those vintage heart cakes with like the old
Yes.
school piping and like the black. I'm like, let's
Which
do
I
that.
love. They're
It's
adorable.
I'm like, not only are you gonna get like your cake moment, but like, it's super Instagrammable. So like
Oh yeah.
let's take advantage of this moment. But yeah,
Absolutely.
I love the cake. I love it.
Yeah. I love it too. Okay. Beautiful. What about matching bridesmaids dresses?
Sorry. Sorry, that was like full on reaction to that.
No, no. If anyone's listening, Michaelene stuck her tongue out to the floor, might I add. And I don't disagree.
I know the history of the bridesmaid. I understand. I'm total history buff, so of course I like do the research and all the things, but like
Yeah.
the history of the bridesmaid was because the bridesmaids would generally dress like the bride to confuse people trying to steal the bride away from her, like on her way to the wedding.
Oh
Like
my
they
God,
were
I
her
didn't know
decoys.
that.
Yes.
Wait, so
They were her
people were trying to
decoys.
steal the bride?
Yes, because like as the family's giving away this bride, she's like this prized possession, right? And normally the guys and the girls hadn't met before their wedding day, which is what the veil is for. Like all these things were like the bridesmaids are decoys. We're gonna confuse evil spirits as she's walking down the aisle because she's in this pure
What?
white dress. Like this whole history about it. So I understand why bridesmaids need to match or why they used to match, but like
Yeah,
now I am all about like let your girls shine in their own personality. Like let
totally.
them wear what makes them feel great. As long as
Yes.
like matches of like, the theme
Yes.
to some capacity. But like I don't think you need to shove, type A B into type B's dress. Like it
No,
doesn't make any sense. She's
and
gonna
they're not
feel
gonna be happy.
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, the photos are gonna suck. She's gonna feel awkward. She's probably complaining to all the other bridesmaids about it and like bringing the
100%.
energy down.
And by the way, you're having your bridesmaid, like typically they're a good quality dress, you're having them spend up to three, sometimes $400. You're gonna have them spend that on a dress that they hate. Like this is someone you
Yeah.
love. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get real.
And I'd say like the people who are in your bridal party, like I would like to venture to say that you would love them regardless, right? So like
Yes.
why make them look a certain way when you
Yeah.
know that their heart, their soul is like beautiful, right? You're not
Right.
going to have like terrible people, and I hope not terrible people in your bridal party. And
Yeah.
so if you say like, "Hey, I know you're not comfortable taking photos showing your arms, let's find you a long sleeve dress." Perfect.
100%.
And like you like halters, great. You don't have the chest for halters, great. Let's find you too. Tube top, kind of thing, or
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is not, and it doesn't. I don't think in the same color. I don't think same patterns. I think
No,
it makes for more interesting photos. I think
I
it
agree.
also helps you stand out as the bride. And I
Yes.
think because you're letting your girls shine, that the collective shines together. Everybody looks better. Everyone looks happier, and everyone's calmer. Just like
Definitely.
that stress-free moment of like put together but not.
For sure.
Yeah.
There's an idea on TikTok. I wrote down the girl's name. Her name's Devin Drain, and she's a co-host of the Fluffy Files. It's a podcast. And she has this idea. She calls it Mary Kate and Ashley matching. And essentially it's like in the same vein. So like you said, doesn't have to be the same color, style, pattern, but it's just like a complement of a dress. So like people, these style girls, they put together these like Mary Kate and Ashley matching outfits for like best friends or whatever. But let's bring that into bridesmaids. Let's get some Mary Kate and Ashley matching for the bridesmaids instead of like, baby twins who, it looks
Yeah.
crazy. These grown women all on the same
Same
dress.
hairdo, same everything. I'm like, what is happening in the world? No.
That's
And I
another
feel like
thing
that's
too.
I feel like that's the same concept of like how we design our invitations. Like each piece should hold its own design. It's all gonna match. It's gonna be
Yes.
I'm gonna coin that like Ashley Olsen matching, because like the invitation, when you see these templates, they're like cut and paste, right? And like the same flowers are at the top, the same at the bottom, and like what is special about this? Like no, like let's change it up a little bit, but it all go together. So like I totally get that. And I think that 100% goes to the bridesmaid dresses and even the groomsmen. Like I do not
Yes.
think the guys need to all match either.
Oh, Michaelene, I 100% agree. Like, what is worse than an ill-fitted suit? Just looks like trash. Like the rented show.
Oh, I hate
I
the
just,
rented. Hate
it
it
looks,
so bad.
it looks bad.
It
Let's just
does.
call it what it is. Like, if
Yeah.
you are a model of a man and it like just happens to fall perfectly on you, okay, whatever. You're
Good for
one in a million. 9 times out of 10, it's gonna look like trash.
And just like girls' bodies are built differently, men's bodies are built differently. So, and I
Totally.
always see this with my husband when he gets asked to be in weddings. He's a fireman and he's got tree trunk thighs. So you
Yeah.
put him in a rented suit, and I'm like if we have to get the size to fit your thighs, like the rest of his he looks like he's swimming in it, and I'm like, I can't even fix it. I can't even duct tape this fixed. And then you have like the slim guys, you know, who are like Mr. Tech guy who doesn't necessarily like to work out, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like suits do not fit unanimously. Looks do not fit unanimously for
No,
anybody.
it's
Yeah,
not one size fits all here.
never.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so trash out.
Trash it. All right. And last one, bridal bouquets, tradition or trash?
Ooh. I feel like tradition if it's done right.
Yes. Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of bridal bouquet designs, and not that that's on the florist. I think that the idea of that like cohesiveness of the day gets lost in the flowers because the bride thinks, I want to have this flower thing, and
Yes.
then it's too big, it's too heavy, it's too much, it takes away. Like I think I'm like tradition if it's minimal.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
yeah,
Definitely. Yeah. It
if
can
it's simple.
overpower, especially like a small girl. Sometimes it's just like,
Yeah.
where is she? You know, she's hiding behind flowers.
And I think people get nervous when they walk down the aisle. You know, they like do one of these, and the flowers are like right here, and you're like, blow her that. It's gonna
At the navel, ladies.
be fine.
Come on.
Yeah, sure, it's gonna be fine. So they get yeah. I think that like I think even in an extreme case where if you had a maximalist kind of wedding, even simple flowers as bouquets make more sense than adding to, because you gotta I think you have to think of it as an accessory, right? And so if
Right.
you've already got like the you know, wild and over top dress, and you've got the jewelry, and you've got the hair and the shoes, like you're gonna end up hiding behind it all. So I think smaller is better in this
Love it.
case.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Okay. Michaelene, before we end every episode, we do an after party. It's just 4 quick questions. They can be coordination or invitation related, but they don't have to be.
Okay.
So we are just going to go through those really quick, and then I will let you go because I know I kept you over time.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I'll
But I
talk
could
your
talk
ear
to you
off.
all day. You have like such good advice, and you know, you give really good info. So, okay. First question of our after party is, what is your top honeymoon destination recommendation?
Okay, I would say it was funny when I was thinking about this, because 20-year-old me when I got married, honeymoon destination is totally different than 30-year-old me destination, right? Like 2 totally different ideas. So I'd say based on me, like my vibe right now is like floating off a beach in Lake Como in Italy, like eating pasta, like that, like champagne and pasta in the water. Like
Yeah.
I'm a happy camper, but I understand the appeal of, you know, the honeymoon is like that de-stress, a decompress. So I'd say as a couple, like my vote, to just clarify, is Italy, just in general.
Love it.
But I'd say as for a couple, I think you have to really identify what kind of honeymoon you want. There's
Yeah.
the adventure, you know, we're starting our life with a bang, or there's like, we need to relax. And so if
Yes.
you're like looking for adventure, do not book an all-inclusive resort in Mexico. Like you're
No.
going to be bored out of your mind, right?
Totally. Totally. Yeah.
So you have to kind of define what kind of honeymoon you want, experience you want, and then that experience can exist inside the states, outside the states, local, couple towns up. If you like, we live next to the coast, so if we want to go up to Santa Barbara or go to LA, we can. It's not that far, but you can make an adventure out of that, or a staycation out of that. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a far honeymoon. It just needs to nail the experience you want.
For sure. But for you, it would be Como, you would say?
Yeah, for sure.
Love it. Love it.
Pasta and pizza.
Pasta.
Like if pasta's there, I'm happy.
I'm with you, girlfriend. I love it. Okay, what about your dream wedding cake flavor?
Ooh, champagne. Champagne flavored cake with like sparkling buttercream and like maybe like those really pretty pearls on top, like that, like a beautiful elevated white champagne cake is my jam.
Gorgeous. That sounds beautiful and delicious. What song do you need to hear at a wedding?
This is funny because I don't find, like, I think I work so many weddings, I don't really pay attention too often, but I feel like, as silly as this may be, is like the Love Shack.
Oh my God,
like,
yes.
I feel like when that song comes on, it doesn't matter how old you are, you're like, yeah, this is a great song.
Everyone knows and loves it.
Everybody on the dance floor.
Yes, no, that's a great one.
I
love Love Shack.
It's so fun.
All right, Michaelene. And then last question of the day. If you could impart one piece of wisdom to any couple planning their wedding, what would it be?
Hire me. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No, I honestly, what I tell couples, whether they decide to work with me or not, is that the goal of your wedding is to be married and happy. That is the goal, not to have a beautiful Instagrammable wedding. If it happens, great, cherry on top, but like don't ruin your relationship for a wedding. Like know that your goal is each other. And so keep that on, that eye on the prize if you feel like things are starting to go not the way you want them to. So just like take it back and just remember what the goal is. So that's what I always tell people.
Love it. Love it. It's really good advice. Michaelene, this was so fun. Tell everyone where they can find you. I'll link it all below.
Sure. Yeah. I'm always on Instagram. That's where I mostly sit in social. And my handle is at Queen Bee Design Studio. And you can visit me also at my website, which is queenbeegraphics.com. I'm usually in those two places, posting reels, getting a lot of comments about my crazy ideas, but I'm always sharing tips and tricks and ideas. So it's always a lot of fun to connect with you guys if you want to stop by and chat.
Love it. Yes, definitely check her out. Michaelene, thank you for being here, truly.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
It was so fun. All right, I will talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode today. Please like, review, rate, subscribe, follow, whatever the things are. It's really, really helpful. If you do support us, there's something in it for you too. You'll have the opportunity to win a free prenup bridal prep planner. We give one away every month. I have the directions on how to do that below, so make sure you check that out. Thank you again for listening. Happy planning. See you next Wednesday.